I'm a little nervous. I'm not sure I expected to be. Hi, I'm Naia, and I am a caretaker in Collective Mind. Hi, Nitrogen. How are you? Hi, Ellie. I actually have not done a video before, but I decided to do a live stream. I am a recently fused alter, and neither of the people I used to be had been on the channel yet either. Oh no, am I making it harder to work on your homework? We had trouble getting things done today as well. That's part of why I'm out. I did get a little bit done. But then it was getting harder to focus, so I decided to take a break. I've been planning my Meet the Altars video, which I haven't actually filmed yet. And I considered doing that first. But I ended up deciding to do the live stream anyway, because I wanted to do a little more prep before filming. Like, I think I'll want to wear makeup for it, I'll want to pick an outfit, things like that. I'm glad you still have time to work on it, Ellie. I agree, Nitrogen. Breaks can be very important. I wish we had been able to take more of an actual spring break. I think we really needed it. Nice to meet you too. I've been close several times for live streams, so I know some of what to expect at least. And I know we don't usually do them this late, so I hope that's okay. How are you feeling after your booster shot? You're dyeing your hair? What color are you dyeing it? We want to dye our hair again, but we are not able to yet. That's good. We didn't get two originally. We did the one where you only need one. We have a hard time with those. A very hard time, so it was much more doable for us to just get one. And I believe we still need to get our booster. It's been one of those things that we need to schedule. We have a long list of those right now. It also hasn't been nearly as high of a priority as it would have been if we did more things outside of our apartment. That sounds very pretty. We want to do mostly red with black on the bottom, I think, is what we agreed on at our next opportunity. I'm sorry that they're not letting you dye your hair. Part of the reason we can't right now is we're scared to do it ourselves, especially because we have so much hair. And it's just not reasonable for us to spend the kind of money to go get it done somewhere, like we did last time. We need to get a few other things sorted first. Hi, Primal Pack. Are you comfortable saying who's fronting for you? We had a very bad headache for a good chunk of the day, which is part of why we had trouble getting anything done. But we finally found the right combination of medicine that helped this time. It's interesting because it seems we get a lot of different types of headaches. And so we don't have just one medication that will reliably work each time. And sometimes we can tell which kind it is, and sometimes it's less clear. So this time was a combination of a couple. That's a lot. Although you probably just woke up, so I think that's fairly common for you. That happens with us a lot too. Whoever was near the front just kind of mushes together when we wake up. Oh, you weren't sleeping? I'm sorry. Yeah, the transition from dreaming to being awake can definitely be difficult. Yeah, but it draws your attention to it. I'm sorry. Oh, I see. There we go. The yarn was getting stuck on a different project that we have in the same bag. Yeah, we have a fan going again. That's a good question. I'm not sure what I want to talk about. My instinct would be to introduce myself more, but I really want to make that a full video. Let me think. What are people's favorite types of games to play? I think I like games more than I used to before fusing. Especially board games. And logic-based ones. Things I like to do? I spend a lot of time with littles. I've learned I like playing games. I realized it when we were playing chess. I definitely like to knit. I like some relaxing self-care things that a lot of our systems struggle with, which is part of why I'm also an external caretaker. Because I can help us to do those things. I think I might like Minecraft. That's one that a lot of our littles talk about a lot, so I know some about that one. Chess is something I would like to get better at, for sure. But I like that type of thinking. It's not lazy to relax and do things you like. That's something we're trying to unlearn ourselves. Is that even if there are things to do, it's still not lazy to relax and do things you like. Hi, Wolf in Disguise. How are you? In fact, our therapist has actually told us that he doesn't believe in laziness as a concept. He thinks that things that are called lazy have a better explanation than that. Like self-care, or even differences in values. Like if I don't value something as much as someone else does, I might choose not to do it, and that might look like laziness to them, because they think I should be doing it, but I'm choosing not to. I'm sorry you've had a rough few days. We have too. We're frequently having a harder and harder time getting our schoolwork done. It gets very overwhelming. Since another thing that we've been working on a lot related to that and the idea of laziness is not thinking of it as lazy if we choose to do something as self-care instead of staring at something productive that we know we can't do right now. So if I can't focus on a textbook right now, but that's the productive thing that I need to do, it is not less productive to watch YouTube or do a live stream or whatever else I want to do than it is to stare at a screen with a textbook, unable to read it. But it feels less productive to us because if we're trying to read the textbook, that feels more productive, but we're not actually getting it done. And often doing the self-care ends up helping us get the productive thing done more easily and sooner, but it's still counterintuitive for us. I agree. The mind and the body do deserve breaks. And that's not some kind of moral failing. That's just how minds and bodies work. And we don't really treat most other things like that. Like if you're driving a car and you run out of gas, you don't sit in the car holding your foot on the gas pedal, getting mad at it for not driving. You take the time to fill the tank, knowing that it's not going to drive until you do. And in fact, in most cases at least, you don't let the tank get absolutely totally empty before taking a moment to fill it. You keep an eye on it all the time. And you at least keep a little bit in the reserve tank until you fill it. Because you don't want to get stuck needing gas in the tank and not having any. I agree, it can be a lot easier to be understanding for others than yourself. But knowing that can be a helpful tool. Because if you're able to separate it from yourself, and think, what advice would I give if a friend came up to me with this same problem? It can become easier to choose to give yourself the same advice. If it's not clear, we've spent a lot of time in therapy. Some much more helpful than others. Does anyone have anything fun coming up that they're looking forward to? Sorry. Trying to get out from under the blanket. It's too warm in here. I think we've said this already on this channel, but we recently went to an aquarium. We have a lot of video clips from it that we're hoping to make into a vloggy sort of video. That sounds fun. I don't think we've been roller skating. I'm sorry that school is stressful for you. Are you looking forward to your mom's visit? It's also okay if you don't want to answer that. Although that's true of anything I ask. I'm not sure I would say it was peaceful. It was very fun. The first half was more peaceful than the second half. It got busier the longer we were there. And the second half, I think, was the busier part of the, exhibit as well. So, we actually happened to line up with a school trip of a lot of rowdy children. So it was a little chaotic for much of the time that we were at the aquarium. But it was still very fun. Just not very peaceful. That makes sense, Ellie. Those types of visits, in some ways, can be even harder. If some people feel safe and comfortable and others don't. At least we find that that can feel more difficult. It's almost like you're not sure which mask to wear, if that makes sense. I'm not sure I've even shown what I'm working on. It's gonna be a scarf, and it's got a pattern that makes it fold in on itself like that. And it is red and dark gray. I think it looks more black in the lighting, but it's a dark, charcoal gray. That makes perfect sense, Ellie. The way we generally handle those situations is defaulting to, I suppose, the lowest common denominator. So whatever we would do with the person we feel the least safe with, we do that with everyone there. And sometimes there are exceptions in the sense that maybe we have a way to subtly tell our partner system, for instance, that we switched without, like, knowing that they won't out us in that situation, but still hiding it from others. No worries, Nitrogen. It hasn't even been that long. Your previous message is still on my little screen. There are littles inside singing songs in my ears, which is adorable, but many of our littles will know one tiny part of a song and just sing it over and over and over. Or sometimes two parts that they go back and forth between. Does anyone have any specific topics on their mind? Especially ones related to system things or broadly mental health things. I guess their disguise worked very well then. I usually have a whole pile of littles around me. We often have trouble telling who is around. It depends mostly on the communication level between those altars, but also on things like how much we're dissociating. And like if whoever is in the front is triggered, that often impairs their communication inside, so they'll have less awareness inside because they're too alert and focused out here, if that makes sense. And also to some extent, I think, because so many flashbacks and things like that will have to do with childhood, and the time that the flashback is from will have been a time with less communication. At least in our case. We built communication over years, and are still working on it every day. And some have an easier time than others. Or at least an easier time with some. For instance, I have very good communication within my subsystem, the music core subsystem. It took a while for Aura to learn more of other altars' perspectives from earlier on in our life. A lot of times those perspectives are deeply intertwined with trauma information. And it can also just feel personal. And to some extent, it can even just be habit to hide those things. It's just the routine you're used to. Uh-oh. might switch, I'm not sure yet. But a lot of people are very close now. More than before. It's alright if you don't have a lot of questions. It was always probably going to be a shorter one tonight because we started later. And we will probably get pretty tired pretty soon. Okay. That was a more difficult switch than I expected. Do I have one of these yet? Yes, I do. Oh, that's not what I meant to do. Here. Sorry, Primal Pack. He did not want to be on the stream. We use OBS as our streaming program. I guess I never put my roles on there. Let's see. This will be a mess for a moment. I apologize. Get this on there. And then over here. Something like that. Almost. There we go. Yes, enough people had trouble switching with him that I stepped in. I'm not sure who's out now for Primal Pack, but the DMs that you sent us, that is the exact song that Littles have been singing on repeat near the front for the past little bit. Nice to meet you, Kevin. Aura's telling me I sound a lot like Naia. Would you agree? Interesting. I don't think we sound all that similar inside, but I suppose we are using the same body. And it's certainly not the most dramatic difference between the two of us, even inside. I'm glad that it's relaxing, though. That would make sense to me, that we word things differently. Sorry, I just saw the date. I don't spend that much time in the front, and I did not know it was March already. I think March 14th is an important date. We didn't forget someone's birthday, did we? Oh no. It's a family member's birthday. We forgot to wish them a happy birthday. They would probably still be awake. I'm gonna text them really quickly. I'm sorry. There we go. Okay, good. They are still awake and they saw it already, so we didn't totally miss it. I would have felt so bad. We were just visiting their house last week, and I think someone even reminded us about their birthday. There's another one at the end of this month, too. We have to remember that one as well. I misread your question at first, Ellie, and I thought you were asking me if I knew about the system. And I was so confused, and I was like, yes, I am deeply aware of the system. Thank you for asking. They do know about the system, yes. I'm deliberately not sharing specific information about them, because we don't think we are going to be talking much about family specifics on this channel. And we haven't decided exactly where that line is yet, so. Bye, Nitrogen. I'm glad you were able to be here. Yeah, so far I think it has been only people on this stream who do not even have a Meet the Altars video yet. I was briefly in another video, but that's it. That's why I had my picture and name already. I was briefly in a Minecraft video. One with a lot of switches in it, although I don't think that narrows it down that much for Minecraft. But my name would be in the title, so it wouldn't be hard to find. Speaking of which, I should probably update the title of this. There. It's a little later than I realized it was. That's why we're getting tired then. We've been crashing pretty early lately, but often not falling asleep right away, unfortunately. Does anyone have any last-minute questions or anything like that? Otherwise, I will start wrapping it up. I'm glad you've been making progress on your homework. That can be a very good feeling. You can ask them again if you want to. I don't mind. Especially since I'm nearly certain that I would not have personally answered any questions that you've asked before. It is possible that Aura got the information from me, so I might still have the same answer. Or we could have the same answers anyway. But you can also save it for next time if you would prefer that. Have you considered the possibility that you're simply triggering them? Because I know a lot of altars in our system would switch if someone started proxying as them. Partly out of curiosity, trying to figure out what's going on and why that other altar is proxying as them. And many of them also out of frustration of why someone would be speaking for them. Other than that, it is definitely possible to be both host and gatekeeper. As far as we can tell, just about any roles can be combined in one altar, including ones that may at first glance seem contradictory, such as protector and persecutor. It is also very possible for people to have roles and abilities within the system that they don't totally understand and don't have total control over. We've had that in our system as well. That is a difficult question. Best I can say for that, when it comes to consent and low communication, is keep in mind as the primary goal to just not do anything that you know someone has retracted consent for. So if you get a sense from someone inside that they don't want to front right now and you pull them anyway, that would be an example of that. Or if you get a sense that someone isn't comfortable with you sharing specific information, that kind of thing. But with that low of communication, especially moment to moment changing things like that, it can be very difficult to wait for affirmative consent. It can be impossible for many things. It is possible there are some mechanisms in place that would stop you from crossing those lines at all. That if they don't want to switch enough, that they won't, no matter what you do. Or that if you were about to share information they're not comfortable with, they would switch and stop you. That kind of thing. Do you feel like you are choosing who to proxy as when you do that? Or does one or maybe a couple names and proxies feel like the ones that you should do in that moment? Do you have a strong pull toward a specific name, for instance? Because that could also be that that altar is already close. I wouldn't personally use the phrase "stop worrying," because the feeling portion of that you don't have control over. But the sort of active concern, as in, like, don't take on that responsibility, is the way that I think I would put it. Because if you are unable to ask for consent to a point, that can't really be your responsibility, as difficult as that is. If it were just inconvenient, or if it were a long-term decision and you just couldn't ask right now, those would be different situations. If you were going to, like, I don't know, buy a house or something that's a major decision, and you normally have good communication but don't in this moment, I would wait on that decision until you can talk to the others about it. And if it is a strong pull toward a specific name like that, like you said, that I think is very likely to be someone who is already close, and maybe even already in the process of switching with you. And potentially even switching with you before you feel like you are choosing to proxy as them, because you could still feel in control as part of the denial mechanism even, or as just not having as much awareness yet over what those distinctions feel like when they are actually just choosing to proxy as themselves. That is very helpful if while they're fronting you're able to check some of those things. I think that's a very good idea. Exactly, they could be grounding themselves, or they could just know that they're even partway through switching and start typing as themselves. And the control that you feel could be just you letting them do that. If I remember correctly, you are always at least co-conscious, like our host is, right? Because if that's the case, it's especially difficult, at least from our experience, to make that distinction until you have a lot of practice seeing, well, now this altar is saying that they're fronting, even though it still feels like I'm doing things. Yeah, so you stay there while someone else is fronting. That can be much more difficult to tell the distinction. Aura assumed at first that we didn't switch because she never noticed that kind of loss of control in any way that clicked like that. And the types of loss of control that she did experience, she blamed on other things. it's possible that that could push them back. That could be a form of fighting for the front. It could also just frustrate them, or anger them, or hurt them. It can feel very invalidating to have someone act like you don't exist for any reason. Which is one of the things that's very difficult about denial in systems. One of the ways that we helped Aura think about it a while ago was essentially imagine being in the shoes of a protector who has spent their entire life protecting someone. And this is somewhat oversimplified because they're protecting the whole system, but they're protecting the host often in more ways than anyone else in the system. So imagine you've been doing this your whole life, and you've put a ton of work into it, and you've dealt with a lot for them, and they finally know that you exist, and that you've been doing that, and they still deny you and refuse to see you. Would you feel hurt? Or angry? Or frustrated? It can be hard. And it's not always exactly like that. Sometimes it can be frustrating because you're just further along in the process of accepting than someone else in the system. Some systems have overall much less awareness, so it's not just the host coming to the realization, but some alters might be able to accept it more easily than others, or might have known a bit longer, but not a lot longer. It doesn't hurt anything to act as though the system is real. Especially just in your day-to-day life without involving other people, or in system-safe spaces, or with your therapist, things like that. Even if you end up finding out down the road that you don't actually have a system, acting as though you do right now could be seen as self-care, for one thing, because you are not denying your thoughts and feelings of right now. You're accepting them. But more than that, it can help you deal with things. It's very similar to a therapeutic coping mechanism and like method of processing, of separating yourself, your identity, into some different versions of yourself that help you make decisions and get over difficult situations. Give yourself more empathy. Things like that. Because if you're struggling and it's the kind of thing you would force yourself to push through, but you're picturing a child forcing themselves through the same thing, you might treat them differently than you would treat yourself. And those would still be useful things to have learned and done in the meantime, even if it turns out you are not part of a system. I think you have a lot to gain and very little to lose. I do think I'm going to start wrapping it up. If you have more questions, you can always put them on Discord or in comments, all those normal places. And if you have enough questions on a specific topic, especially gatekeepers or things like that, we might make a whole video on it. Who knows? But thank you for hanging out with us for this shorter live stream. There are links in the description if you need them. And you can like and subscribe if you liked the live stream and if you want to make sure you see future ones. It does help us a lot. And there will be things to click on the screen later on at some point tomorrow. Thank you for watching. Bye.